Hello, good evening, Natalia. How are you? How do you feel today?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Great, that's good to know. Let's begin, please, with today's class. I believe that you have some exercises. I don't know if you were able to work on those examples or on some paragraphs. Let me know, please, so that we can check that first before going to the first lesson we have for today.
Yes, I was working in the second paragraph. I didn't work yet with the examples,
Okay,
but the paragraph is at the end of the document.
all right, I see it over here. All right,
Mhm.
so this is your second body paragraph, right? So we don't have
Yes.
yet here the introduction, but it doesn't matter, just that, because we're going to check if this is working good. So please, I'm
Mhm.
going to ask you to read this paragraph.
Mhm. Okay. Now is the moment to consider all the advantage of living abroad. To have the opportunity to start from zero in another country for improving the quality of life is a luxury that only few people can be given by themselves. According to the online blog, The Broad Club, the immigrants can aspire to better opportunities of incomes, but not only that, also to be more able to access a better life for raising their family with government benefits that in countries in ways to development, it's impossible. This means that the advantage isn't only for one person, but also to their family and future life in general, because it means access to more information, to more opportunities, to more knowledge, and in consequence, increase and be possible a comfortable life that in the main country is very far. And all in all, moving abroad is an important decision, and this requires determination and conviction. But the most important thing is working and planning to make sure to be real.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, in this case, so in the first one, I imagine, I don't remember very well, we got the disadvantages. Now we have perhaps advantages. Or is this your first body paragraph? This is your second body paragraph, right?
A second. Yes.
Okay, good. Now, again, let's check. All in all, I believe that we have all the steps that we need, and that's a great start. All right, so I'm going to go to the details then. Here, it is always good to use, it is not bad to use now, all right, but it's stronger because now is usually just a time reference that is used at the end of your idea, right? It's not going to be, let's say, the best transitional word for introducing a new paragraph. It can be possible, but if you want to use this because you need a transitional word to start with the second one, to make this a transitional word, but it's not the best, but you need to use a comma and then you need a complete idea. And how do we make a complete idea when we don't have a personal subject? We use it. Exactly. So now, comma, it is the moment to consider all the advantages of living abroad. All right. But again, this not being, I'm going to give you suggestions over there for what you can use. Let's close this one. Well, actually, here you have some suggestions. You can use some of those. Yes, actually, those are going to be my suggestions. All right. So we can use always one of those elements. All right. Second of all, it can be. All right. Secondly, that's also one thing that we can use. And that it's active for English, all right? But then you can use one of those because those are real transitional words. Now it's just going to be like something extra that you can use, but it's not a transitional word by itself. Okay, it's very weak to start one paragraph, at least in English. All right, at least in English, that's going to be it. Then it is the moment to consider all the advantages of living abroad, to have the opportunity to start from zero in another country, from improving the quality of life. All right. Here we're going to change some details. All right. Remember that to have is good, but also remember that if we want to use a subject, the infinitive is not being used anymore. Not as frequent as what? As the gerund. The gerund is always going to be the best option for having an activity as the subject of our sentence. right? So here it is going to be having. Okay, to have is not bad, but it's not going to be again the best option as the one over here. So it is going to be having, sorry, with the P, having the opportunity to start from zero in another country. Remember, to improve is your purpose. So we don't say for improving, we have to say to improve because it is the purpose to go to another country to start from zero. All right, so we need and I'm not making this, sorry, this is important. So to improve and also infinitive because this is a purpose. Anytime you're talking about purpose, infinitive, here we mentioned that it can be the comma, but we have a better transitional words to use. And here to have is infinitive. Sometimes people use it to start an idea, but it's mainly to talk about objectives, all right? Or it was used before. Nowadays, the gerund is the best option anytime you want to mention an activity at the beginning or as the subject of your idea. So let's keep going. Having the opportunity to start from zero in another country to improve the quality of life is a luxury, all right, that only few people, but in this case, we're going to use the expression only a few people, all right, because it's going to be a small amount, but it's still significant, all right. Few is when you want to give a negative idea about this, but in this case, you want to just talk about one group, one small group that can do this, all right. And when that's your only intention, if that's your only intention, here we're going to mention a few. All right. Few again is going to be kind of negative, but not descriptive. It's going to be more just to mention something very negative about something. This is a kind of positive that a few people can get to do this. All right. So it's going to be a few people. Then can be given by themselves. Here you have to decide two things. If you say can be given, that's going to be it. All right, because it's a general way to say that they receive this opportunity. Of course, it can be by themselves or by someone else, but using this in passive voice plus using the agent, because the agent at the same time is people, is going to be too repetitive in the passive voice. And the idea of using passive voice is always to try to omit the agent of our idea. All right. So that being the case, you have to decide if one of these is the best idea for you, Natalia. The first option is to only say that only a few people can be given in general, all right? They receive this opportunity from life, from the universe, all right? But it's something that doesn't happen to everybody, right? Because of many situations. Or you can change the passive voice to active voice, and then you can use the reflexive pronoun. And you can say, can give to themselves. All right. So you have those two options. You can use active voice to mention themselves, or you can keep um, the passive voice structure and you don't use the reflexive pronoun. Which one do you think works better for your purpose, Natalia?
I I don't know if it's more formal if I use by themselves
Actually,
than
both.
if I use.
In both cases actually work here very well. Look, you're going to see something, and perhaps in this case, I can tell you this now. In argumentative essays, we try to avoid passive voice. All right, we always try to avoid passive voice. So in that case, if you take that into account, here you can change this, and you can say can give to themselves. In that case, you are avoiding the usage of passive voice, and you still have kind of the same idea. The idea is over there, but the structure is correct in this case. All right. The other one again is also good. That is not going to make yours. So I'm going to leave the other option as well next to it. Okay, so can be given. All right. both work. Using only one sentence or two sentences in passive voice is not going to affect the entire essay, right? So again, that's why it is always good to avoid passive voice, but it's not incorrect if you use it. All right, that's why both ideas
Mhm.
transmit the same, but in this case can be given. You are mentioning this in a more general way, all right, that they happen to have this opportunity because of many circumstances that we don't control, and can give to themselves is something that people produce for themselves. You are saying that people actively, all right, are producing these opportunities for them. But as that perhaps is not going to be always the case, perhaps this general idea is going to be the best. Even though it's in passive voice, is more general. All right, but you decide. You
Mhm.
have these two options. All right, up to that part, I don't know if you have any questions so far, Natalia. Let me know, please.
No, the difference is that can be given is or can give to themselves is the opportunity that you generate for your own, and the other can be given. The sense is other.
Yes, that's very general. When you say a few
Uh,
people can be given, it means that the opportunity come to them, but not because they produce that. It was because
okay.
of many circumstances, because life is like that, because you
Okay.
know how everything works, all right? And
Mhm.
perhaps because of those elements that they don't control, they got the opportunity, but not everybody has the
Mm.
opportunity.
Mhm. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so the first option is better, I think.
All right, good. All right, so it's going to be there. You're going to pick the best one then over there. But as you say, the first one is the best in your case. Then
Mhm.
let's continue. According to all right, the online blog, the Broad Club, comma, great. The immigrants, all right, good. Yes, you're directly connecting. So the only thing we're going to say over here, no, actually, it's working good. I'm going to check this because actually I'm not sure. Every time we work with these citations, usually we go straight forward to the beginning of the idea and we don't connect this in the way you're doing. This is great, all right, and this is valid. But I'm going to verify if we have to use a punctuation mark over here. All right, this is not what usually everybody does, but so far seems to be good. All right, because this is completing this idea, right? But you're using someone else's words, so it's great. But let's continue. The immigrants can aspire to better opportunities of incomes, but not only that, right? Also here, you are having like the beginning of another idea, all right? And here, um, that is not going to be able to be connected like that. You need now another complete idea. All right, it's kind of weird, but not only that, uh, but also, all right. So because this structure actually, all right, is again perhaps you took this from the internet. Did you copy this exactly from the internet, or is something that you wrote? You wrote.
Yeah.
All right. So why? Because the structure is going to be always not only but also. All right, not only
Mhm.
but also. So we have a but at the beginning. It's not going to let us use this structure. All right, so we're going to make some changes. It's going to be the immigrants can aspire to better opportunities of incomes. All right, not only, all right, and not only that, but also here, this but you're going to save it for later, and you're going to change this to addition, and here you're going to use
Mhm.
but, okay? Because if not, we cannot use this structure. All right, to use the structure
Mhm.
not only also, we need to make that little change over there. All right, and not
Mhm.
only that, but also to be more able, all right, to access a better life for raising their families with government benefits that in countries in ways to development, all right, in yes of development could be over there, is impossible because here if we are using only one subject, actually here we're not going to use it. But let's look for the real subject. But I want to check what's the idea that we have over there. All right. Yes. Why are they not letting us use the comma or another comma over here? Because after also, we don't have another subject, another real subject, just the continuation of this aspire to better and to be. So that being the case, here we're not going to use a comma again. And why? Because this but is not dividing complete ideas. All right, so I'm going to be marking this first so that we don't forget. Okay, now I'm going to go to the point. Here, this seems to be the beginning of your idea. And actually, we are not using another new subject. Everything comes from the immigrants. So let's analyze one more time. The immigrants can aspire to better opportunities and income, and not only that, but also to be more able to access better life for raising their family with government benefits that in countries in ways of development is impossible. All right, so we are going to use this idea like that. All right, why? Because in this case, again, we are not finishing the complete idea. All of this is connected to the one same idea, and we are only adding information to this. All right, and because of that, we are not going to start a new idea with it or with he or with she, because if you realize, we are only using verbs to connect everything that started over here. All right, that's why again here we're not using the comma, and that's why here we are not using the it, because it is not starting anything new. But I want to know if that is clear or if you have any questions about these details over here. Natalia, let me know, please.
I put it's impossible because I was thinking about that I am talking about opportunities, not immigrants, or no.
Okay. Yes, but then we have to start a new idea, because to aspire to better opportunities of income, but there after opportunities of income, then you're giving another idea. So we are not continuing with this. And it says, and not only, but also to be more able to access a better life raising their family. So that's another thing that we're mentioning. Then with government benefits, that's an interrupter, right, in countries in ways of development, comma, is impossible. So you're telling me actually this is impossible is more connected to this. All right, more connected to this, more able to access a better life for raising their family. All right, with government benefits, that in countries, is impossible. But actually, also it goes with this directly. So you have many ways to organize this idea. It's just that you have a lot of phrases, right? Because this is a phrase. In countries of ways of development, that's a phrase. This is a phrase with government benefits, that, and it's not complete. This is interrupting something else. Then, to be able to be more able, all right, to be more able to access a better life for raising their family, all right, that's also a phrase, right? Also here we have a phrase. So as we only have phrases, we are connecting all the phrases that you got with a lot of commas. That's why that generates a little bit of confusion. One way to solve that is to use a semicolon or a period to try to divide the ideas. All right, because again, that can create confusion. In that way, again, this impossible, because it is not clear yet what is in fact impossible. If it's everything here, then we're going to say that those things are impossible. But we're using is because it only seems to be connected to one. But again, that's not clear. That's why we don't know if we're going to use is impossible, are impossible, and to what exactly this is connected. Because as we have one interrupter, we have two interrupters at the same time, and three, we don't know exactly to what this is impossible connects. All right, so one possible way, let's look for this, and then again we go to the lesson. It can be the immigrants can aspire to better opportunities of incomes. All right, then we can set here the first period. All right, and not only that, all right, of income, yes, and here it is going to be, if it's a general, all right, income, we are talking about then an uncountable now. All right, the general income that you receive. If you have many incomes from different places, it is going to be the case. But as we are talking mainly of the income in a general way, we're going to change it to an uncountable now. All right, but the idea here is not that. Is that we set a period over there that can aspire to better opportunities of income. And here we can say, not only that, but also be, and not only we're going to use then a complete idea over here to separate, all right? Instead of that, we're going to say what we mentioned before. Not only, and to use this again is a structure that we don't know, it's we call advancing version. It's going to be in the form of a question, but it's going to be a statement, okay? So it's going to be not only are they, all right, aspiring to get better paid. Okay, we're restating that idea. Okay, not only are they aspiring to get better paid, but they are also more able. So we're going to start giving complete ideas to separate that. All right, not only are they aspiring to get better paid, but they are also more able, okay, more able to access a better life for raising their family. All right, with better government benefits that, okay, in countries in ways of development over there is going to be, is impossible. So it means that this is connected directly to this idea with government benefits that, but it says also is impossible. Here, it has to be connected directly to that idea. All right, but we have to analyze if that's going to be the best thing. Let's say, for example, what they say over there. I cannot see what's exactly the suggestion, but again, because that is not going to be here, because we're talking about benefits that, but the benefits are not impossible, right? So I imagine that is in this case, but we still have two interrupters. So we have to try to change one more thing. So we're going to read once again. It says the immigrants can aspire to better lives of income. Not only are they aspiring to get better pay, but they are also more able to access a better life for raising their family. All right. Perhaps here we can start a new idea, but I don't know what we can say about this new idea, Natalia. I don't know if you have something in mind to start something over there, either with a period or with a semicolon, to be sure that the next part is going to be complete. Or here, look, this is my suggestion, this idea of impossible, because I believe that you're referring to this, the government benefits. We don't have perhaps these government benefits in other countries. So you can connect the idea of being impossible here. So with government benefits that are impossible to get or obtain, all right, in countries, all right, in ways of development. All right, in that way, again, we are making very clear that this is what is impossible for some people to obtain the benefits that the government can give you in these countries. All right, but just by changing the order, we are avoiding those extra commas to be sure what that belongs to. All right, that would be the correction up to that part. I don't know if you have any questions so far.
No, it's more clear. I have to use more columns on my paragraph in general.
Sometimes, yes, to avoid the overusage of commas and to avoid a lot of interrupters, right? Interrupter, comma, interrupter. So it means a lot of phrases, incomplete sentences. Yes, it is sometimes better to organize those interrupters in the best order and then finish the idea and start a semicolon or a period and then another idea, right? The commas should be only used to give a maximum, that's my piece of advice, a maximum one introduction at the beginning and one interrupter in the middle. And that should be it. All right? Because if you have many interrupters, that's going to create that type of confusion.
Okay.
All right? Good. Then, of course, here we need the period inside.
Is ways of development, right? I put to development.
Yes.
This is another
Ways of
mistake.
development. All right. Yes, I was repeating that one and I didn't correct that. You're right. So, and the last part. This means that the advantage isn't only for one person, but also for, but if you're saying that the advantage is for someone, then it's also going to be for someone else. All right. It depends what you use here. The meaning can be different, but we're going to see that's the best. But we're going to use the same preposition over here and over there. All right. But we're going to check again if it's the best decision. So, isn't only for one person, but also for their family and future in life.
In plural?
Yeah, actually, if you're talking about just about one example and one person and their family, it is good to say family. But if you want to give a general idea using plural, it's also correct. Both are good if you keep the same structure every time. Also here, right here, we have to change that. If you change that in that one, I believe we had one over here or over here, right? Then you have to change also over there. But it's not always necessary. Okay, why? Because singular and plural can be general examples. It depends how you portray or how you show that information. All right, because again, if you say one can do a lot for their family, it is very good because you're talking about only one, and there is a rule that we have to use in plural, but not because it's a lot of families. It's because in personal subjects like one person, all right, are always going to use a plural possessive. Okay, but what is next to that, it doesn't have to be in plural. All right, good. So in future in general, because here we don't need this. All right, why? Because we are studying this and it's in the middle. No worries, because it means access, all right, to more information, to more opportunities, to more knowledge, and in consequence, increase. Here, increase is just one verb in the base form. It cannot be like that. So in consequence, increasing and all right, so one possibility here is using the gerund, but we're going to see the rest of it. And
to be
what
possible.
when you say, but it's possible what? And increasing what in this case? A more comfortable life and perhaps making, all right? Because if you say
no increasing, improving, I mean.
Okay, there you go. Improving and making possible a comfortable life that and this is like a clarification. Let's see if this is the best. So let's begin from this because it means, all right, access, you are giving a direct description. It is not that. Access to information, to more opportunities, to more knowledge, and in consequence, here again, if you want to be very formal, we're going to need another comma, and in consequence, improving and making possible a comfortable life, which in the main country is very far. All right, this is not bad, but if this is going to be a complementary clause, that's, I think we didn't see this with you yet. We call this a non-restrictive clause. And when we use commas with non-restrictive clauses, we're always going to use which instead of that. All right. So which in their, you can say instead of the main country, you can use this expression, right? Which in their homeland, for example, it means, right, that's the country where they come from. And their homeland is very far. All right, so that possibility, right, that possibility or that way of improving is far. All right, and you can use far or again hard to get or another adjective that gets to the idea of not that easy to obtain. All right, but again, I believe that in general we're good. These corrections over here, we're about to finish. But again, to me, this is very, very important. So doesn't matter if we spend more time here. And finally, all in all, moving abroad is an important decision. And this, no, this is a new idea, right? Why? Because we start this requires determination. So it is a new idea. Okay, and this requires determination and conviction. But, all right, here again, we have to decide something because we're going to use double. The most important thing is working and planning to make sure. All right, we're starting a new idea, but again, as we have many commas, remember the rule. If we have too many commas before another fanboy that starts over there, we have two options. If you really want to use that fanboy, you're going to use a semicolon, the fanboy, this because it's an interrupter, and the idea. The most important thing here, you don't need a comma actually right there because I'm analyzing. That's not an interrupter, right? This is the subject of your idea, right? But the most important thing is working and planning to make sure, all right, to be real, to be real is just to say, right, to be sure to exist. But as here, we're not going to say to be, we're going to say, to make sure to make it real or to make it come true. It can be real or to make it come true. All right, but we're going to say make because you're actively doing that. All right, those will be. So in general, not the comma after this and not dividing, because here the mistake was that you were dividing the subject from the verb, right? And that's not going to be possible. So the most important thing, the subject, and is was the verb. So we are never going to place a comma over there. Here only the semicolon because we have two commas before, all right, in order to avoid confusion. It is not incorrect if you do this, all right? It is also good, but it's your decision. If you believe that that's going to create confusion, you can use a semicolon, but using commas over there, but that has to be before but, because this is another complete idea. All right, and once again, the other option would be using a connector, like nevertheless or something like that, but that's something else that is not necessary. So that would be it. All right, again, in general, I believe you have the most important thing, that is the structure. And I believe that the structure was clear for you, and that's the most important thing. Now, these details, of course, are something that we have to practice, but again, to me, that you know the structure is even more important than these little details. So I want to know if you have any last questions so that we can go to our lesson today.
No, thank you. It's more, this is my first, I don't pass with a Google Translator. I work only in the document, and I was imagining that there are a lot of mistakes, but that's okay.
It's good. Yes. And actually, that's what you have to look for, right? You have to really show what you got to receive real feedback, because if not, again, we are never going to know what are the things that we have to change, right? But it's great. Thanks for doing it in that way. It's way more valuable. And again, doing it in that way, you were able to work on this structure, and it is great. It is, again, practicing. Those details are practicing, but it's going to get with the time. All right, just with the time, Natalia. Very good. So let's go, please, now to our lesson for today. If you remember, and that's something that you are going to do perhaps for Friday, right? You are only going to write examples in the present and real conditional, right? 4 examples in total, that's what you have to write. But we imagine, again, that that's going to be clear because as in the practice with the past and real conditional, and as you let me know, it was clear. All right, so knowing that it is clear, we're going to go to this topic that is even easier. Okay, why it is easier? Because we know the past perfect. This is only the past perfect continuous. And we know that the continuous is always talking about an action in progress. That's it. That's the only difference. But let's understand better. All right, let's first remember about the past perfect. Let's read, please, this slide, Natalia.
Past perfect, an event that happened before another event in the past. First event, I studied a lot. Second event, I took an exam. I had studied a lot before I took an exam. After I had studied a lot, I took an exam.
Great. Thank you very much, Natalia. So anytime you have two events in the past, right here, two are in the simple past. I studied a lot, I took an exam. But if you want to make it clear what is always the first and the earlier event, what tense do we use? The past perfect, right? So in the I studied a lot, we are going to use the past perfect because this is the first event in the past. This is the past of the past, right? So I had studied a lot before I took an exam. Here it is clear, right? There's no way of getting lost because we also have this before, right? So this is what happened first and then this, okay? But to make it formal, the past perfect, Natalia, can be avoided. You don't have to use the past perfect if you don't want to. Why? Because you can be informal and you can use clear connectors and it's still clear, right? Because if you say, I studied a lot before I took an exam, it's also correct and it's understandable and it's good, right? So why do you use the past perfect if it's the same? It's not the same in terms of translation of the meaning, but it's still the same idea because this is formal, all right? And because this is to avoid any possible confusion. And anytime the connector is not clear, the past perfect is going to make it clear what is the first idea, always. All right, always. But again, you can avoid it if you want, but my recommendation is to have it over there because you're going to read it in articles in many places and you're going to use it to tell precise stories in the past. All right, in this case, the same. You can simply say, after I studied a lot, comma, I took an exam. It's correct. Simple past, simple past. You don't need the past perfect. But why do you use it again? Because it is more formal and because it avoids possible misinterpretation. Because you know that the tense that is in the past perfect is always the first event in the past. All right? This is our review of the past perfect. We know this. This is not new, but we're reviewing. So for example, if I ask you this, Natalia, it's a question for the past. Had you studied before your last quiz? How can you answer that?
No, I hadn't studied.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Sorry. Yes, exactly. You can give always the short response, right? Yes, I had. No, I hadn't. But if you want, you can clarify afterwards, right? You can say, no, I hadn't. I hadn't studied before my last quiz, right? It means that the past of that past didn't happen, right? You didn't do that action before your quiz in the past took place. All right? It is very simple. If I ask you this, it's also yes, no question. Have you completed all the assignments before the due date, right? The previous assignments for the course A11, let's say.
Yes, I had. I had completed all the assignments before the due date.
Exactly. Just a little detail. Remember, as you're sitting complete, but in the past participle, it's going to be completed, right? Just completed. Exactly. Very good. I had completed all the assignments before the due date. Perfect. All right. Now, I am going to ask you more questions. They are also in the past perfect. How do you answer to this? All right. It's very simple also. What had you done before we started our last class? What do you say? What had you done before we started our last class?
I had drank a coffee.
Drank? Yes.
This is the past participle. I don't remember.
Yes, it is because drank with A is the simple past and drank with U is the past participle.
Okay. I had drunk coffee before the last class.
Perfect. Exactly. I had drunk coffee or some coffee before our last class started, right? It's perfect. So I know what was the first event in the past before our past event together. That was the class, right? So any question like that is always going to have a context, Natalia. If they don't give you the next part, it's because the context is clear. Okay, so for example, you're telling me a past story and you're telling me that you had a date with your ex-boyfriend. Okay, but I ask you, and what had you done? All right, so in that question, I imagine that you're going to tell me the action that you did before you were on a date with him. All right, so again, either the context is clear or they are always going to give you a good context, because this doesn't work with another context in the past. It is not possible. It is unnecessary. It is useless to use the past perfect without a context. Okay, why? Because if it's not the past of another past, then you can use simply the simple past, right? So it's only when you have a context. If not, there is no need to use the past perfect.
Okay, I
Okay.
only use past perfect when I have to talk about context.
When you have exactly, when the context is clear, when you mention it, or it is clear in the conversation. Okay, when the conversation is mentioning something in the past and you ask a question in the past perfect, we imagine that you want to know what happened before that action in the past. All right, if not, if it's a simple question about the past, then don't use the past perfect. Again, why? Because it has to be clear. It has to be clear. And if you don't want to know what happened before another action, also don't use the past perfect. It's only for that purpose. All right, it's very reduced. The situations in which you can use the past perfect is very, very little, very small. All right, and again, it's always going to be like in these examples that you're going to read right now. If you don't have that logic, if you don't have that context, then you can simply use the simple past. Okay, but let's read to see what's the context in these cases.
I had finished my task before you called me. He had texted her friend by IM yesterday. They hadn't started the assignment when you asked them. We hadn't even watched the first episode by the time you finished watching the entire season.
Exactly, very good. Yes, I was also confused when I was reading this because it doesn't say, right? It's 11, right? 11 a.m. Yes, yes, it doesn't look as a number. I don't know that the font is not good. Yeah, yeah, I also was confused about that. So yes, if you take a look at this, if you don't mention, right, the context or the next part, it is not necessary to use the past perfect. You can simply use the simple past, right? If you don't have that, here you can only say, I finished my tasks, right? Or I texted my friend. Or here, I hadn't, or I didn't start the assignment. All right, and here finally, let me delete that. It's going to be, we didn't watch the first episode, right? So if you only want to state that idea in the past, do it in the simple past. Only use the past perfect again when you have another event in the past that is your context, that is justifying why you're using the past perfect. Okay, again, if you don't have this justification or your context is not clear, then again, it's not necessary, all right? I'm not going to go around anytime, but that's the idea, all right? Remember, you can stop me at any moment to ask me questions. That was a review because we covered already the past perfect. Now, this is the topic, the past perfect continuous. But again, before starting this, I don't know if you have any questions in general about the past perfect, Natalia.
I understand that is only like I have to use the past perfect only as a specification, no is necessary in general.
Correct, exactly. Because if you want to say something in general in past, you have the simple past, right? I traveled, right, to the US 10 years ago, or I just traveled to the US, simple past. all right? But you're going to use the past perfect if you want to mention that you traveled to the US before another event in the past, right? But if you don't want to mention that, you don't have to use the past perfect. Okay, that's why again the amount or the possibility of using the past perfect is very small. Unless you're having a very detailed conversation about the past, you're going to use it. If not, it's not going to be frequently seen. Okay, you're not going to see this tense as often as you see the simple past, the simple present, the present continuous, and so on. All right, it's not common. All right, now this is the past perfect continuous. Again, it is exactly the same, but what's the difference? You're talking about a first event that was happening and finished before another event in the past. It's the same. It is the past of the past, but it is the past continuous of the past. All right, something that was in progress and finished before another event in the past. So let's read this slide, please.
First event in progress, I was eating. Second event, you arrived home. I had been eating before you arrived home. After I had been eating, you arrived home.
Exactly. There you go. Now, again, this is always past, and the reference, Natalia, is never going to be present. It has to be past, okay? Always past. For example, if in the past I saw that you were tired, all right, you were very tired, I can say that perhaps you had been running or you had been doing some exercise before we had our meeting, for example, okay, or before we had our class, but everything is in past. That situation that you were tired in the past, that I saw you in the past. And the idea that you had been running is the past of that past. That you had been doing exercise is the past of that past. And this is even easier. Remember, the perfect tenses are easier. Why? Because you don't use the past participle of the main verb. You always use had, you always use been. The only thing that you change is the verb with ing, right? I had been reading before you called me. She had been, I don't know, right? She had been going to, I don't know, her school by the time her mother, I don't know, right, visited the professor, anything like that, all right? But it is always going to be had plus been. The main verb is only one verb with ing. And as always, afterwards, you have the idea in the simple past. Okay, if you have those elements, you have everything you need. And this is the logic, right? Everything is in past. This is something that had been happening, and this is something that happened afterwards. So this is the first event in progress in the past, and this is the second event specific, also in the past, but after this progression. All right, that's going to be the logic. And again, everything is in the past. We don't have a contact with the present. All right, and again, you're going to ask me questions, but try to reply this first. And it's similar to the question that I asked you, but instead of telling me that you had, right, drunk some coffee, here you have to tell me what you had been doing. All right, because again, it says, what had you been doing before you joined the class? Not yesterday, right? The day before yesterday.
I have been working before the class yesterday.
Correct. I have been working, I have been studying, I have been washing my clothes, I have been watching a movie, I have been anything you want. Even you can say that idea. I had been drinking a cup of tea or coffee before our class or before the class started, right? That's the same idea. But again, how do you decide? It depends on your unit. If it's a verb that can be continuous, good. Remember, you need action verbs. If you want to use an action verb in the continuous tense, perfect. Remember that you cannot use stative verbs, right? We never use stative verbs in the continuous tense. It means, for example, possession have. You cannot use that in this tense, right? It's the same rule for any continuous tense. Natalie, remember that you never use stated or non-action verbs in continuous tenses. That's the only limitation that you have. But after that, if it is an action verb, Natalia, it depends on you. If you want to show a continuation for the past of the past, past perfect continuous. If you want to show just something more precise that happened before another precise event in the past, okay, so two precise events in the past, but one happened after the other one, we're going to use the past perfect. All right, again, that's the logic. So it's going to depend on you, always on you. This is the second one. This is a yes no question. Had you been running before our last meeting? What I told you before, right? You looked tired.
Mm, no, I hadn't. I hadn't been running before our last meeting.
Exactly. Good. No, I hadn't. I hadn't been running before our last meeting. So what were you doing, right? I can ask you that. So what were you doing, Natalie? Why were you so tired in the past? What had you been doing then?
I had been doing some exercise at home.
Yes, exactly. And always with had, right? Had, correct. I had been doing some exercise at home. There you go. All right. And this is the structure that you always use. Natalia, had, if it's negative, hadn't, plus always the verb to be in the past participle, because we always use the verb to be in continuous tenses, and the present participle of the main verb. What's the present participle? The verb plus ing, right? Or running, studying, cooking, drinking, dancing, and so on and so forth. And here you have some examples, all right? So let's read the examples and then let me know the questions that you got, please.
I have been studying a lot before the big day. She had been asking her friends about it by the time you let her know the answer. And they hadn't been paying attention to the class when the teacher asked them a question. He had been running a lot. That's why he was so tired.
Okay, there you go. Right again, exactly the same logic as the past perfect. Natalia, the only difference again, it's up to you. You want to show a continuation for the past of the past, use this. If you only want to mention something that had happened precisely and specifically before another specific action, the past perfect simple, right? That is the one that we covered at the beginning. So let me know, please, what questions or comments did you get so that you can write only 2 examples in this case as part of the exercise. But what do you say? Any questions?
I was thinking in a class when we took a similar topic, but we use when, like an action when is interrupted. I was drinking coffee when you called me. And I don't know if it works like this. Is an interruption or not necessary?
It is close to that, close, but the big difference is that this action in the continuous tense finished, and then the second action happened. So it didn't interrupt. It is a continuous action that finished first, and then the second action occurred. But in the past continuous, in the one that you remember, it didn't finish. It was happening, it was interrupted, and you can continue with that. It can continue. All right, in this case, no. In this case, it is not going to continue. It's something that had been happening, finished, and then the second action happened.
It only works as an specification.
Yeah, what do you mean by specification? Also, you need a context for this?
Yes, or what, or an specification about what happening while the second action happened.
Okay, no, yes, in that case, no. If you want to use while, we are only going to use the past perfect. So the only case in which we're going to use the past perfect continuous is again to say that an action in progress finished first and then a second action started in the past. That's the only case in which we're going to use, so that's the only specification. So it means that you also need a context using a past reference after this with these connectors, before, by the time, when, or after, right? We can also use after, and the next part in the simple past. But yes, we need that specification. In other cases, we're not going to use this tense. It's also very restricted, all right? All the past perfect tenses, the simple and the continuous, are restricted. They are only for the situation that I'm telling
Mhm. Okay.
you, all right? Good. So let's only write, please, a couple of examples, Natalia. Two examples, we check in 2 minutes, and we finish with that.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Mm, in the document, right?
Yes, please, in our new document, in the place in which you show me the paragraph.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Only two, right?
Yes, that's correct. Only.
Mhm.
So let me take a look at that. We check that, and we finish with that correction.
I have to
So,
use these connectors. I don't know if that's connectors, but I have to use by the time, when, like in the
exactly.
examples.
Exactly.
Okay.
Those are the ones we have by the time. When is good, not the best option, but it's good that you use it. When, before, after, and by the time. Those four are the best options for the past perfect and the past perfect continuous.
No, okay. Mhm.
All right. So let's read, please, what you got.
The students have been waiting the class before the professor arrived to the classroom. My dog had been eating its food when you visited me this afternoon.
Okay, visited, right? When you visited me. Great.
Visited.
It is great. Okay. The only corrections are for prepositions because the examples are perfect. Remember that you don't wait, you wait for something, right? So
Okay.
you wait for the class before, and remember, you don't arrive to, that's Spanish. You arrive in or you arrive
Ah,
at. Exactly.
mhm.
So here it can be in at the classroom, but in the classroom is also the best option. That's it. Everything else is working good, Natalia. All right. So again, because of the time, we're going to finish over here. As I'm sharing, please the poll with you that you can see there. I want to know if you have any last question in general so that we can finish. You have the poll over there, and we have two today, please, because this is the fourth class. So you're going to have the satisfaction poll as well.
Okay. Yes,
All right,
that's good.
and this is the one more. There you go. And that's the last one.
Mhm.
All right. So there you go. I'll see you then on Friday, Natalia. We didn't see that. It means that you have the corrections. But on Friday, we're going to see the last paragraph, that is the conclusion. And with that, we should be able to work on a complete essay. And remember that you can apply that knowledge for your essay as well, right? You have one essay to write, and you can apply
Mhm.
that structure for that. But that's it.
Okay.
Thanks for being in today's class. I'll see you on Friday.
Okay. Thank you. See you on Friday.
Bye bye. Good night.
Bye.